So what is the double ramp rush with walls? The double ramp rush with walls is a building technique which allows you to push onto someone from a small distance who is in front of you while giving you structured durability. The walls put in front of your ramps give them a bit of protection, making it more difficult for enemies to shoot you down. You won't want to use this when the enemies are below you, for example, as you'll just be wasting materials. You might as well be placing only ramps or using a double ramp rush with floors and walls, but we can go over the double ramp rush with floors and walls in another video. So now I'm going to show you how to do the double ramp rush with walls, as well as give you some real game examples of how I use it and how it's effective. To start off, in order to get good at the double ramp rush with walls, you're going to want to get good at the singular ramp rush with walls. When it comes down to being able to perform the singular ramp rush with walls, it all comes down to timing. So all it really takes is building a ramp, then a wall when you reach the bottom of the ramp that you just placed. If you're using turbo building like I am, you can hold down your building button without having to let it go if you switch between your building options appropriately. With turbo building on, the timing goes as building your ramp, then climbing to the bottom of the ramp that you just placed, then switching to walls, building your wall, then switching back immediately to your ramps. From there, it's just repeating the cycle. One issue that you might be running into is that your walls may not be placing behind your ramps, but instead in front of them, and this is because your timing is off. You don't want to be placing your walls too early. To give you a more visual example of what I mean, you can see here that when I'm not at the bottom of the ramp that I just placed, the wall tries to be built in front of my ramp instead of behind it. This is why it's important that you wait until you get to the bottom of the ramp that you just placed so that you make sure that it's built behind it instead of in front of it. So if you want to slow things down, you can instead crouch walk or just walk, and that'll just slow down the process of everything so you can get used to the motion, and then you eventually want to work your way up to running. So be sure that you get good with the singular ramp rush with walls, and then you can move on to the next part. So for the next part, we're going to move on to actually doing the double ramp rush with walls. Now, when you see me do it, you may not notice anything in particular, but what I'm doing that's making the double ramp rush with walls much easier is using the circle method. The circle method is simply a motion that you make with your mouse while performing the double ramp rush. It involves placing ramps when you're at the top of the circle and placing walls when you're on the bottom of the circle. Once again, it's rinse and repeat. So it doesn't really matter whether or not you go clockwise or counterclockwise. What matters is that when you're at the top of the circle that you're making with your mouse, you're placing your ramps, and when you're at the bottom of the circle, you're placing your walls. With practice, you'll get accustomed to how quickly you should be making these imaginary circles. The rules from the singular ramp still apply in that you need to be at the bottom of the ramp that you make before you place the walls. Another issue you might run into while doing the double ramp rush is that you might find a couple of your walls appearing on the side of the ramps, and this is because the circle that you're making is too wide. The circles that you make don't need to be so big, they can actually be quite small. Likewise with the singular ramp rush, if you're having trouble performing it, you can crouch walk to slow down the process and speed up with walking and then running as you get more comfortable. So one problem you might be having is the start of the double ramp rush, and the thing I have to say to that is that you're going to want to place your ramps first and then place the walls. Basically, you can think of it like placing your ramps first and then starting the circle method starting from the bottom, placing your walls. In this first example here, this is a 1v1 I was having with someone at the very end of a game, and I'm going to be doing the double ramp rush here, and this just gives my structure a little bit more durability. You can see that from his angle, if he decided to try and shoot down my ramps, it would be a little bit difficult for him to break it down because the walls are covering the ramps. Now, one mistake I did make here is that I only used one ramp at the very beginning of my structure, and that makes it very easy to knock down, assuming that he has the right angle to do so. So even if he wasn't able to knock down the higher parts, he would have been able to knock down the lower part because I only placed one ramp and I didn't even put a wall in front of it. So same idea in the second example here. I am going to start off by pushing someone with the double ramp rush, and this clip should really highlight what happens when someone is under you. You can see that when I build that extra floor above him, he is now below my ramp, and that allows him to easily attack the ramps instead of having to go through the walls. And this could easily be fixed by putting floors under, but that is a different technique which we can go over in a different video. If I did not place these two ramps, if I went one floor lower than what I did here, he wouldn't have been able to break down my structure so easily. But you can see here that even though that he can break the ramps, I can still punish him by moving over to my other ramp and shooting him when he's shooting my structure. If you're in a scenario like this where the enemy is simply shooting the ramp that you're standing on, if he manages to break it before you can fully kill him, you can place a floor under you and that will connect you to the rest of your ramp and you won't fall all the way to the bottom. So that wraps it up for this video. Hopefully this video was helpful in that some of you may now know how to use the double ramp rush with walls and you'll know how to use it. So thank you guys for watching and I will see you guys in the next one.